away, boots and rolls to his right, stops, loads it up, throws down deep in the middle of the field. Rod Smith's got it. Here we go. 30, 20, 15, 10, 5. Rod Smith, Denver touchdown. Inside the 10, head first. He's high. Yard line. Wanted that first down.
And I tell you what, if you want to tell me the 37-year-old man that's going to win this game.
The Broncos have been in 3 overtime games this year. This time it's in the middle. Big stick of the guys right in the 30. To the 20. Pass to the 10. Denver's going to
And the pocket is good.
Ball knocked out of his hands. It bounces around. And I think Denver's got it. Von Miller again.
Wilson fires.
Touchdown. Sutton. His second of the game.
Good evening, Broncos fans, and welcome to the Denver Bronco Roundup. Of course, I am your host, Keith Brugman. I'm going to give you just a hint of what we have on board today. Christmas Day, 14-51. Nathaniel Hackett, Greg Penner, George Paton, Randy Gregory, Russell Wilson, Dalton Reisner, and Brett Rippon, and the moves that will be made. But before we get started, just a reminder, the Denver Bronco Roundup is brought to you by the Rocky Mountain Sports Network. Check out the Rocky Mountain Sports Network for all your sports news, rumors, and, well, podcasts. Like I said, we have a ton to get to. Looking forward to all your comments and questions, but we're not going to delay. We're going to get right in. We're going to introduce our co-host to the show, Mr. Albert Knoppers, Mr. Jody Moncrief. Welcome in, gentlemen.
Welcome.
Good evening, y'all.
It is a big day, and we are ready to go. So, Paul, thanks for chiming in. Good to see you, buddy. Kenny coming in, and something I was going to say to you guys as well. Merry Christmas. It's a little bit late. It was a little bit early before, but Merry Christmas, fellas. Kenny from the K Show. Looking forward to a great show. Looking forward to having one. So, is this a rerun? It could be. It could be a rerun from another week. It could be a rerun from, heck, another year for that matter. We were talking about that right before we got on the show. But, gentlemen, hey, we did get a little bit of a lump of coal as far as our Christmas Day performance from the Denver Broncos. But I just wanted to ask you guys, how was your Christmas? Albert, how was your Christmas, buddy?
It was very good. Busy. We celebrated with the entire family. Except for the people who had to work, unfortunately. Some people have to do that. But other than that, it was a great Christmas.
Fantastic, buddy. Fantastic. Jody, I know you got little ones running around as well. That's always a fun time, man. How was your Christmas at your place? How'd the festivities go off?
It was good. The little ones got probably a little spoiled, but that's all right. It was all good till about 2:30. and it went downhill from there for about 2 hours.
There you go, buddy. There you go. Paul saying, I didn't mean to confuse you, buddy. Everyone saying Merry Christmas got me confused. Yeah, it's a late Christmas. We weren't on here, obviously, post-game for the Denver Bronco Roundup. We round up every Tuesday on what has been kind of said. So, but nonetheless, man, Paul, even Merry Christmas to you, man. I hope you had a good one as well. Me, we had the entire family back, which was fantastic. My oldest is going to school out in Ohio, so we had everyone back. We went from sub-zero temperatures to about a 40-degree day on Christmas Day, so that was fantastic as well. You know, nice to be able to actually step outside and not worry about frostbite, hypothermia. You know, the small things in life. So it was fantastic. You know, and just a good little get together. Obviously. We didn't spoil each other too badly, but we all got a little bit of something, right? So that was real nice. So, well, Paul, you're welcome. He says, thank you, bro, and you guys are awesome. Enjoy your show. We enjoy people like you, Paul, chiming in, and we've got a lot to get to, man. We've got an absolute ton to get to. Like I said earlier in the show, we got the OG crew in here this evening, and question one, obviously, the Broncos are embarrassed. 14-51 versus an LA Rams team. Like I said, in my agenda. I'm not going to get into a whole lot of questions on this game. We got a lot of other things, but I just want to get your thoughts on the game itself. Albert, I'm going to switch it over to you first. Give me your thoughts on what you thought of this game in general.
Yeah, I didn't see the game yesterday. I saw highlights today, and I thought it was sloppy everywhere. And they were not motivated. They were angry with, it looked like with each other from what I saw. And the biggest disappointment is watching it through Nickelodeon, because that is, to me, that is garbage how they present it.
Maybe not your demographic they're trying to get to, buddy, but understood. Understood the slime time. I did hear, and I did have to watch a little bit of replay of Patrick, Starfish Patrick, giving us the business on the broadcast as we threw our interception. One of the interceptions. I caught a small clip of it, so understand you're not being very happy with the game. Anything else you want to say about the game? If not, we'll switch it over to Jody, buddy, and see what his thoughts are.
I think I might be one of the winners for not watching it completely, because the frustration was already there within 5 minutes. So when I saw it, so yeah, I think I might be a winner.
Albert's thinking that he is the winner, as well as probably anybody that maybe had a little bit early dinner, maybe anybody that was already in that nap after getting up a little bit early with the kids. Anybody that happened to miss it might have been the winner. I might completely agree. Before I throw it over to Jody, if you wouldn't mind translating from your beautiful wife here.
It says vrolijk kerstfeest, which means Merry Christmas.
Oh, very good. Well, Merry Christmas to you as well, Michelle. I appreciate that very much. I went out on a whim, making sure that she wasn't saying anything inappropriate, and I still ended up on the screen, Albert. So I feel I know our character just a little bit better. So
I think if she did, I would have been blushing.
Oh, that's true. I would have had to take it off right away. I would have just seen those red cheeks swell up, and that would have been the end. Jody, maybe you had a chance to catch a little bit more. Maybe you shut it off because, or threw your remote through the screen. I'm not really sure. Your thoughts on this game, though?
It was horrible. Started off bad, 2 picks in the first 2 drives. Russ played horrible. Defense looked like they gave up. We probably got Baker a big contract for next year, the way run up and down the field on us or throw up and down the field. We couldn't do anything right. And then it boiled over to the sidelines with fights between your backup quarterback and starting offensive lineman. You had Randy Gregory getting in a fight post game. I mean, it was a madhouse, and nowhere was Hackett to be seen to put a stop to any of this.
Yeah, I did see a little bit of a clip. I guess he was, at least in part, did come in as in part in that Reisner little scuffle that we'll get to as well. But yeah, here's a team that came out and obviously 3 interceptions by Russell Wilson. You're down 17-0 within the first 5 minutes of the game. You bring back Cortland Sutton and you put him in the X position and just try to force it to him, including the very first play of the game. It looked like, as Nathaniel Hackett said, and maybe part of the demise as well, when you come into your post-press conference and say, we weren't prepared, that's probably not the thing that anybody wants to hear from your ownership group as you went into that game. So, yeah, it was just an absolutely debacle of a game on the offensive side. It never looked good, and for the first time, I think the defense fell down, gave up, didn't care anymore, wanted to give the offense a taste of their own medicine, wanted to give Hackett a taste of their own medicine. I'm not really sure, but regardless, it was a complete team failure when you end up with a score like 51-14. So, question number 2, I'll just get to this. Biggest your two MVPs and your two disappointments. We'll start off with MVPs. We'll start off with Jody. Jody, do you have any MVPs you could name out of this game?
Not really. I mean, the whole from coaching to players to Russ to everyone played bad. I'll put it nice. I mean, they played bad. There was nothing. And what'd you say? Garbage players? Russ played horrible. The whole defense played horrible. I mean, they let the tight end Everett go off for not what I can't think of their tight end. 9 catches, whatever, 3 touchdowns. I mean, they decided to show that hey, tight ends can still run wild on RDs. So
yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure.
No, nothing was good. I didn't see anything that stood out great at all.
All right, Albert, can you give me an MVP? I asked for 2, but I'll just take 1 if you got it.
I think Latavius Murray, because he tried to get in between Reisner and Rippon and to de-escalate the things, I think. And I think that was one of the highlights, because the entire team should have been there and doing it, and not everybody just gawking around and doing nothing. Biggest disappointments, I would say
right
Reisner, Reisner and Gregory. If you feel frustrated, that's okay, but don't show it in public. Be at least a professional and to do it behind doors. In my case, Reisner, he would not play next week. He would not play on this team at all anymore, because you don't do that, especially in public, to a teammate.
All right. I'll get Jody's biggest disappointments, and then maybe we'll address this whole Reisner, Rippon, and Randy Gregory issues right off after this. So, biggest disappointments, Jody. Did you have any? Or can you narrow it down to 2 or 1?
Russ played horrible. The first 2 picks were horrible. The third one, he was playing hero ball. I mean, you can say that he's lost it, but I mean, those 2 guys were wide open in front of him. He had to have seen him. He chose to throw that ball deep to try to score a touchdown. So whatever on that one, but the other 2 bad. And the whole line. I mean, Russ can be corny, Russ can whatever, but I mean, he's getting knocked down and they're just standing there not helping him up. I mean, at some point, somebody's got to stand up, and enough's enough. I mean, he's out there playing her. I mean, some of his gimmicks are corny. They're probably overblown, but whatever. I mean, they have to know that he's going to be here. So you're going to win with Russ. You're either going to win, or if you're going to win, you're going to win with Russ. So you better find ways of making that happen. And I mean, basically giving him the hike the ball and just letting 12 or 11 guys come at you and blow you up and not helping you up is, I mean, that's that's Hackett too, though. I mean, they've completely lost it.
Yeah. For me, MVP, I'll still give some big credit to a guy who's been stepping up week after week. Jerry Jeudy had 6 catches for 117 yards in this game. I see a guy that continues to fight even through this game, even though it wasn't the best performance to come down with 117 yards on 6 catches. Once again, was trying to fight upfield as well. He's about the only guy I saw out there that was really, truly giving some fantastic effort. Maybe an honorable mention to a Dulcich, but this is one of those games where I really can't name anybody on defense. I can usually come up with a Damari Mathis. I can usually come up with a Justin Simmons. I can usually come up with an Alex Singleton. None of these guys really performed on that side of the ball enough to give mention to. Quick shout out to Sis. Sis, evening, men. Well, evening to you, Mr. Sis. Appreciate it very much. Matt Staffiero jumping in the conversation and said they played defeated. You can tell the culture is gone. 7 consecutive losing seasons, hyped up by the addition of Russ, and came crashing back down. Needs to be overhauled.
See, I'm really surprised that it had lasted so long. I would have thought that the defense already would have given up earlier, and I'm surprised that they haven't.
Yeah, I told us, I said that we were going to talk about it, and this is a great segue, Albert. I talked about breaking points throughout the season, and obviously we saw some breaking points this weekend in this game. Dalton Reisner apparently thought Brett Rippon came over and said something to the fact that you guys can't keep allowing sacks. Took exception to that and obviously gave him quite a big shove. In which case, as you mentioned, Albert, Latavius Murray jumps in, shoves him back, kind of gets him in position and starts talking to him. Montreal Washington grabs a hold of Rippon and brings him back. Now, I don't know if you saw the reports, but he came out, I believe the next day, 104.3 The Fan, and he said that, hey, I wish they would have had a camera on me 2 minutes later when we were hugging it out. We also had a great conversation, and we had breakfast together the next day in the cafeteria. So he says, I wish, obviously that wouldn't have happened. I let my emotions get the best of me, basically, and I apologize, and shouldn't have ever happened that way. So that being said, I can kind of understand, and I don't know if that changes your perspective on this at all, Albert.
So they want to keep up face. If that happened or not, I don't know. But that is some things that they do for the politics, because they want to keep playing next year as well.
That's
so
fair, man.
because their paycheck is on the line, but things like this, what between Reisner and Rippon, should not happen in public.
Agreed, man.
It is. I know it is an emotional sport for them, but some of the emotions need to be either faced towards the opponents, but definitely not towards team players in public.
Yeah,
keep it behind doors.
Good point. In public and behind closed doors is a great way to put it. Jody, I'm going to throw this other portion over to you. Sounds like Randy Gregory was getting an earful all game long from the offensive lineman, and I'm sorry I don't have his name in front of me at the moment, but was getting a whole earful about all his past transgressions and all his history that it may not be also enviable, I guess you could say. And at the end, he had enough. In fact, to the point that the quote that I saw as he was walking on the field was, and I'm paraphrasing here, but basically something to the effect of, if you're going to ask me if I smacked him in the mouth, you bet I did. He had enough, and the handshake post game was not a handshake; it was a fist fight. What do you take of? And you can talk about Rippon and Reisner as well. But what is your take on Randy Gregory and his demeanor, and quite honestly, how that ties back into the coaching decisions as well?
They just got to a boiling point, really, and I mean, this was going to happen sooner or later. You could just see it coming. I mean, nothing's been going right. You're losing games. You don't have where's Hackett at? I mean, he's not there. I mean, he should have been grabbing Reisner or Rippon and in someone's face saying, we're not doing that. I mean, there was nothing. It's just, it was all around bad. And no one held anyone accountable. Yeah, they made up afterwards. And I never really held or took anything more than frustration, and when it's done, it's done. But Hackett was not. Where was he to, at least show that, hey, we're not doing that, or why didn't he pull someone or anything?
Yeah, a fantastic point. And that was going to bring me back to actual part of the game as well. Talk about a guy who's checked out. Not only is he not part of these interactions, is he not, heck, I remember even like a Tom Coughlin type of guy grabbing a hold of a guy as he's running off the field and still giving him an earful, i.e. that could have been Randy Gregory. But at the very, you're down 17-0. You've got a quarterback that's throwing 2 interceptions at that point. isn't it time to bench this guy? Isn't it time to take a stand and make a change? It just seemed like no matter what happened, Nathaniel Hackett was certainly absent in this game, if not in moments throughout this season, throughout games throughout the season. I was absolutely livid when we had to throw a challenge flag to see if we actually got to get to play overturned, and they didn't even take no more than 2 seconds to overturn it. They said, that's the fastest overturning I've ever seen. Well, as a coach, you need to be up there and you need to be yelling at that ref saying, you just made me waste a challenge. You just made me waste a challenge. You just made me, that's an opportunity that I lost because you guys don't know how to make a call. When they basically say it's been thrown and like literally say it's been overturned, first down for the Denver Broncos, you should be livid. You should absolutely be livid. He just was absent. Completely absent. So a few people just coming in, Matt jumping in and saying, y'all happy with the press conference, what was said from Penner and or Paton? Yeah, we got a lot to talk about when it comes to that press conference because that's the next thing up. Kenny jumping in saying, I think Rippon made a valid point. Help your QB up. On field, you are brothers and family. Off the field, it's another story. Much to Albert's point, like he was saying as well. So
I will stick up for Reisner a little bit. And all these post-game interviews and stuff, he has always been there to say that BS isn't happening around here, and he is always the one defending Russ. So, I mean, for him to be the one to get, singled out, hey, go pick him up or block or whatever, I mean, has he been the greatest O-lineman this year? No, but he has well defended Russ for Russ's corny actions that whether they're still happening or not, I have no idea. This is stuff that's going back, that's getting replayed over and over again. You don't hear the let's ride anymore. You don't hear the he took complete ownership of what he did wrong after this game. So this stuff is just getting played out by the media, and they are just fueling the fire of crapping all over Russ. I mean, has Russ played great this year or no, he's played horrible. So it is what it is. I mean, you can only bury the guy so much before it's like, move on. Really.
Yeah. That's all good points. One thing I was going to bring up that when Albert was talking, maybe I'll give him a little bit of FaceTime after this, is the fact that you're right. He is playing for a job. He's playing for a position. He's playing for a contract. He's going to, as Albert was kind of alluding to, you're going to say things in the media in order to make things right regardless, after the fact. A lot of his plea, I guess you could say, on 104.3 The Fan, he was talking about how he's a Colorado kid and a Colorado native, and he's spent his whole life being a Denver Bronco, and he loves being a Denver Bronco. And so there was definitely that portion of, hey, I'm playing to the hearts, and kind of what Jody was saying. Hey, he's a company man. He's rode the line. He's said all the right things. Jody, do you think Reisner comes back next year?
No.
But
sorry, I
have Albert on the screen, but I said Jody.
Right.
Albert, do you think Reisner comes back next year? Sorry about that confusion.
No.
Albert, go ahead.
No. And one of the things that was very apparent in this game, every time before he starts snapping the ball, he is standing up and looking at the quarterback. Why?
Yeah. Why? That's how they've been doing it the entire time. I think he actually gets a signal because then he usually taps the center. Something that Jody was about ready to lose his mind about earlier in the season of why does he always have to tap the center? Why doesn't the center know when to snap the ball? It's a communication thing that happens in our offense, and why? That's a good question, buddy.
But in this game, it was very apparent that he was doing this. And then, in Hackett, I believe that Hackett already knew what was coming, and that he literally mentally was completely gone in this game. He was physically present, but that's about it. Because he should have, with Gregory, you saw what was coming. Just for the end of the game, I would have sent Gregory to the dressing room, because now you lost him for another game because of the suspension.
And he was obviously losing his mind all game. He took some personal foul, some roughing the passer. He took a couple of flags throughout the game. They were in his head. Have a Facebook user, and by the way, Facebook user can either drop your name or give StreamYard your permission. We'd love to give you a shout out to your name in particular. So sorry that we're missing you as far as a name, but we're happy that you're tuning in, and I appreciate you leaving the comments. So, gentlemen, before we get any further, I just want to talk to our watchers and our listeners. I need to tell them about something fantastic, and that's Willow Seasonings and Blends. Just last week, I made a bowl of popcorn. It was during our little holiday break here with the family here, and I threw in some of that feisty lime seasoning, and the next thing you know, I got the whole family in my bowl. So now I'm kind of excited to try all these other flavorings that I have, because there are so many uses beyond the standard barbecue. From soups to popcorn, let your imagination go wild with these flavors. They got the sweet heat, they got the sweet smoke. Now, sauces might not be good on popcorn, and I don't know, but it'd probably be fantastic in your soup. So they also have the Sweet Thing barbecue sauce and the 1859 barbecue sauce. That feisty lime seasoning I was telling you about, the Memphis style dry rub, and of course my favorite, the high elevation SPG. So pick up your Willow seasonings today. They're available all along the Colorado front there, and check them out as well at willowseasonings.com. That's willowseasonings.com. Willow Seasonings and Blends. They'll spice up your life. So, gentlemen, we talked about it a little bit earlier, and it was already being brought up in our comments, but today was the day. Today was the day that we had the Penner came out in his press conference today. He said he had no plans for letting Hackett go prior to this game, but with the performance on and off the field this Christmas, the decision had to be made. Quick question. We can go this pretty quick, I guess, because I think we got a little bit of this out of the way. Was this the right time to let Nathaniel Hackett go? And do you also agree with the firing of Butch Barry, offensive line coach, and Dwayne Stukes, the special teams coach? All of a sudden, I'm losing my train of thought. But Albert, I want to throw it over to you first. What do you think about the timing of all these firings?
I'm surprised that Hackett lasted that long. I would have expected after the England game that he would have been gone. But I think the win has delayed it a little bit. It was inevitable. This would have happened if not now, then in 2 weeks. But I think it is better now and cut the umbilical cord, or what do you want to call it, and be done.
Cut the cord, yeah.
Yeah, and be done with it. And now we really can start focusing on a new season. See 2 training games coming up, and leave it at that.
Jody, your thoughts on just the timing of the firing, obviously for Nathaniel Hackett, but also, again, offensive line coach, special team coach. What are your thoughts on these firings and letting goes?
I mean, I understand the firing after this performance, but I think this should have happened about 4 or 5 weeks earlier. I mean, you could tell that the team has been frustrated. There's no real leadership. When little things happen like Purcell and Wilson, Hackett's nowhere to be seen, doesn't do anything. I mean, doesn't, get in there and take charge. I mean, Melvin Gordon fumbles 5 times and he cries and he's a starter. The next game, he just baffling moves that I don't know how he comes back from that. I mean, this was all set up for Aaron Rodgers, and when they didn't get Rodgers, he had no clue how to adjust to make this work.
Yeah. The one thing I will say is, as far as doing it sooner, this is one of the fastest firings, one of only 5 head coaches who haven't made it through an entire first season. Urban Meyer went through this last year, but under completely different circumstances than what we have here. So, to me, as frustrated as we were, I've been waiting for the Broncos to take the Steelers type of approach, and we're about as far away as you possibly can be from that type of mentality where, hey, you make a hire, you stick with it, you grind it out and you make something of it, and it seems like in this quick changing world, we're not willing to do that. We're not willing to be the Steelers. I'm hoping that changes with the right hires as we kind of move forward. But, for me, I was saying it in our pregame, but, Stukes, I didn't think necessarily needed to go. I know they weren't performing at the very top as far as special teams were concerned, but I didn't feel like we were giving up big returns like we were in years past. I think he was working with a rookie as far as the return game, and one that had his own issues that they were trying to work with in that regard. And I just didn't see where it needed to be done with 2 weeks to go. That being said, at the same time, I said it, and we can rewind the tape. I thought if we let Nathaniel Hackett go, it would be in season. It would probably only be a couple games before the end of the season, just to get ahead on the hiring process. And lo and behold, that's exactly what ended up happening. So, not that I want to be right in the fact that we're once again looking for another head coach, but yet here we are. So, Kenny's coming in. He's got a bold prediction for Nathaniel Hackett. He will be the OC in New England or back in Green Bay. Boy, what do you guys think about that? Do you think that Nathaniel Hackett could win in New England or go back in Green Bay, Albert?
I don't think he will go back. It would surprise me if he would go back to Green Bay, if they even want him back, because he tried to lure Aaron Rodgers from them, and so I'm not even. I will be surprised if we get a shot back at Green Bay and New England. Yeah, let him go to New England. Maybe we have a chance to win there if he is an offensive coach.
Wow, Albert's throwing the heat, man. And Jody, any thoughts on Hackett picking up an OC gig, New England, Green Bay, maybe someplace else?
If I was I think he sits out of here. I think he's got a lot of soul searching to do. I mean, you took a head coaching job and you couldn't even make it 17 weeks. And you're already gone, and you sit back and, you can say it was all Russ, but I can point out open receivers here that Russ just missed. But there were a lot of behind the scenes stuff that people were calling out right away, from OTAs to playing no one in preseason to kicking 65-yard field goals or whatever it was the first week to there's just tons of things behind the scenes that he's got a lot of soul searching to do, to say, how did I fail so catastrophic in 10 months, really.
Yeah, 11-month tenure for Nathaniel Hackett. I was thinking about that. Not very often that you see coaches tenure in this day and age not include 2 dates, i.e. 22, 23. He gets just a 1 date when that's as far as that's concerned. Kenny just coming in and giving Jody some props here, saying great points, Jody. So Kenny's loving what you're saying there, buddy. Sis has brought in a good point, and this is something that actually we saw in the press conference as well. We saw both Penner. I know Paton for sure, Penner I believe as well, both address this. This organization really needs to take a look at their entire picture. And 100% agree with Sis. It was nice to hear actually in that press conference that there was a lot of ownership. You had Paton come out, and I paraphrase, saying, hey, this is not a Nathaniel Hackett problem that we had. This is, I hired the head coach. I brought these guys in a free agency. I drafted these guys. It's me. I need to change. I need to fix things. I need to get better. Really took more ownership than I've ever seen George Paton take in the past. That being
I mean,
said,
his seat's got to be
ooh,
roasting on fire. I mean, he took every bit of it was no one else's fault but mine. And I mean, you could tell from that press conference, he was trying to save his job. And I think if you had experienced owners that didn't want to look for a new that are already looking for a head coach, I think he's probably gone too. I don't think they wanted to go through the new head coach and GM all in the same year.
All right, Albert, because this brings us to, this was my next question. Penner came out in support of Paton, but do you think he could be fired as well? Do you think that's a possibility, and do you think it's because of this ownership's inexperience that he's staying put?
Owners' experience maybe in the football league, but they have experience in other managements for sure. And they already took away one of the responsibilities for Paton. He is not going to be in charge of the new head coach. So, and this is maybe step by step. His responsibilities might reduce, and until there is a good time for him to be put on the curb as well. Isn't that what happened with Hackett? First, he was doing the play calling, and then he called somebody in to do the play calling for him, of the time management. That's what I meant. And now we see that also already happening with Paton too. The head coach is going to be accountable towards the owners of the Broncos and not towards Paton.
Yeah.
So,
Go ahead.
No, I think that's maybe one small nail on the coffin. Is that what you call it?
Yep. One small nail in the coffin. Takes a few. Well, there goes one, huh? It's interesting. I thought about this because I think for the right head coach, a head coach that might want to come in and really have control of this football team, I think Paton could absolutely be in line for still being let go. If Sean Payton comes in and he says, hey, I think I got this, or I have my own guy, or they're really in love with Harbaugh, and Harbaugh comes in and says, I've got this, or I have my own guy, it makes sense for Payton to continue with all the scouting he's done all year leading into the draft, to continue through the NFL draft and take the best of that knowledge. But going past the draft, you pass off those responsibilities to the new GM, and that's the arrangement you make with George Paton in that instant. I'll turn this back over to Jody. Would you give those responsibilities over to a Jim Harbaugh or a Sean Payton, or both?
I mean, if those are the two coaches you are going to want, what if either one of them say, I want my own GM? What's Payton going to say to that in the interview process? Well, I don't want that guy. Goodbye.
Well, guess what?
That's why
Who's leading this process for
that's
the head
why
coach, though?
that's right. That's why I'm saying that I don't think his seat is safe, because if Penner or higher up, right, Walton say, I want Jim Harbaugh and I'm going to and I have a blank check to get him. And Harbaugh says, this is what the only way I could see him not coming is if they say, get rid of Russ. And they say, financially, we cannot.
Very good.
Very
good.
Goodbye, Payton, because if you want Jim Harbaugh, he's going to bring his own GM in. So that's where I don't think he's safe. And I think that's why Penner came out today and said that he was going to lead this search, because the first words that George Paton hears from either of those two that say, I want my own GM, well, he's kicking them to the curb because he's trying to save his job.
Right. Try to make that work. My question is again to Albert, same basic idea and question. Do you give those what if Sean Payton comes in and says, I want the GM responsibilities. I want to be the guy who's in charge of the draft and the free agents, and I need the power. him or Jeremy Harbaugh, do you give that to him exclusively, or do they need to bring in their own people? And are you willing to let Paton go, George Paton go, in those instances or in others?
If there isn't a head coach that has experience to do both, there are several good examples who do both. Belichick, for example, and then we have with the Seahawks, we have Pete Carroll. Yeah, there are several head coaches who do pretty much everything. So it can be done without a general manager. It can be done. So if we have an experienced head coach who can do it, then yeah, why not? Give him the money for a general manager and get it all lined up accordingly.
All right. Albert, everyone's been talking about how do you get out of the Russell Wilson contract. Kenny's got a question. He's posing to all three of us. I'm posing it to you first. He says, I have the question for the three of you. Would you trade Russell Wilson and get out of that ugly contract for a struggling young QB named Zach Wilson? I'm seriously thinking about it if Paton is gone. Albert, if Paton is gone and you're looking for a change at that quarterback position, do you think that's a shot you take?
I don't think so. Russell Wilson, I still think he can be a top 15 quarterback. And if we have an average quarterback, we can win games, especially with a defense that if they really show up, we can win games. It has been proven by the Seahawks multiple times. They have been, the last 10 years, with Russell Wilson, they have been in the playoffs. So it can be done with Russell Wilson. We just need to find a coach who is willing to play to the team's strengths and not to what they want to push into the team.
Well said, bud.
For example, we saw that with Sutton and Judy. Sutton might not be an ex-receiver anymore. Let him play from the slot. Let's give that a try. But it didn't happen.
Agreed. First play back, man. Got to get him into that X spot. Got to get him the ball. Jody, Russ Wilson for Zach Wilson. You know, they get us out of this ugly contract. We get a young, fresh QB. Is it something that you'd consider?
I don't even think Zach Wilson plays into it. If I make the trade and don't need Zach Wilson, if you think he's washed, because I can go.
Are you saying you're trading Russell Wilson to the Jets for a bag of chips and they can just throw in Zach
I mean,
Wilson?
You basically at this point are, if you trade Russ, it's to get out from this contract. It's basically that's what you're doing. I mean, do you think Zach Wilson is the future? No. So
Gotcha.
You're just trading him to get out from his contract. If you think he's really washed, if you don't, then it doesn't make any sense to trade him because you're not getting anything back in return other than some financial relief because no one's giving you high round draft picks for him. But in my opinion, I think the way Russ played this year, he is not going to want to go out like that. He is going to be humbled. There's going to be whoever they hire is going to come in and take some of this, Russ, you're not going to have an office, this kind of stuff away. And I think Russ will play good football next year. I mean, does he need to throw 50 touchdowns and 5,000 yards? No. I think 30, 35 touchdowns, 3,500 pass yards, somewhere in there, you can win with this defense. And I think Russ will be on a mission to prove all the haters wrong this offseason.
Yeah, and that's what we're all hoping for, man. That's what we need. It would be nice to see him get a little bit of humble pie, come back dedicated and strong, and wanting to truly prove his doubters wrong, and not just want to, but actually go out there and make that happen. Kenny just kind of chiming in on the head coach with GM responsibilities, saying, I don't like it. Big risk. It failed terribly with Bill O'Brien. Of course, we all know Bill O'Brien from the Texans and some of the terrible decisions he
I think that's two different conversations. If Harbaugh wants to come in and bring his own GM in, That I listen to. I don't listen to him coming in and being the GM. I don't want any part of that. You need someone focused. You can be a part in the draft and some different things, but I'm going to get, and you can have a say in some, hey, I had this guy whoever, say Sean Payton, I had this guy in New Orleans. He's doesn't have it anymore. Don't bring him in here, whatever. But at the end of the day, you need to focus on getting this team turned around, and you've got you've got a full-time job just doing that. You don't have time to work on all this other stuff right now.
That's fair, man, and I feel that way as well. I feel a lot better if this went into the hands of another GM, but I certainly don't think that George Paton is sitting there in the cozy seat now that he's made the first round of cuts. I think Morris could certainly be coming.
I agree with that because I don't think, other than really Evero, I don't think that you're going to get a first-time head coach again. So you're going to get someone experienced that has been there, done that, and knows what they learn from their mistakes, knows what they want. So if Payton is not what they want, then either like Sean Payton, he work at Fox one more year, and then his contract's up with New Orleans, and he'll go do whatever he wants. He'll get whatever job he wants.
Yeah, very true.
Or Harbaugh, he'll go back to Michigan. I mean, he's playing for national championships. He doesn't need to leave. You want me, you're going to pay me, and X, Y, and Z.
Very true, man. We're not sitting in the catbird seat getting to dictate exactly what we want and how we want it. We're sitting on the opposite side of that, fence. So Kenny just coming in and saying, Jets want no part of Zach, which is why I suggested Zach Wilson for the Russell Wilson. Zach plays close to home. Maybe he gets his confidence. Just a thought. Gentlemen, head coach, man. We've kind of dove into a couple names. Obviously, they would end up making probably the short list. I want to get your guys' short list and who you would like to see come in here or who you might think might be brought in here. Last year, not far off from this time since it was 11-month tenure for Nathaniel Hackett, we brought in 10 different candidates and to take a look and settled on Hackett himself. Jody, give me some names that you want to see come in. We'll throw it over to Albert. And actually, maybe we'll do this one at a time. We'll say that is everyone in agreement that Sean Payton is one name that we'd all like to see come in here?
Yes.
Yeah.
As at least a candidate, obviously, as someone to talk to. We're not talking.
Do I think that's realistic? No.
Oh.
I don't think he is.
Okay, so we want him. He doesn't come, says Jody. Jim Harbaugh. Albert, is that somebody you would like to see come in, and do you think he would come in? And then Jody, same there.
Yes, because he is a great manager of coaches. Because he will give the coaches a lot of freedom. Because he is a manager of coaches, and with that, yeah, he pretty much is already a general manager by himself. And that's what I would like to see. Yeah.
Okay. Jody, Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, I think they're gonna have to throw a lot of money his way.
Okay.
I mean, he's got a pretty good gig in Michigan right now, but I think he's gonna be the one they go after. And I own just some reading between the lines. Condoleezza Rice is gonna be heavily involved. Yep. She was heavily involved with him in Stanford. They have deep pockets, so they're going to get who they want.
Yep.
That's the guy I think that makes George Paton sweat the most.
Fair enough. I'm going to go through this list. Actually, I know I posted it in our agenda, but I'm going to actually go through this. There was a reason this list was actually put out this way. Sean Payton is at the top of this list. We just talked about him. Dan Quinn. How are we feeling about Dan Quinn? Albert, what's your thoughts on Dan Quinn, defensive coordinator out of Dallas?
He is a defensive coordinator, and I think we have been dealing with the defensive coordinators for a long time now. We finally had an offensive coordinator. It didn't work. But I think we should go with an offensive coordinator again.
Okay. Jody, and we'll try to make these rapid fire because I got a big list. What are your thoughts on Dan Quinn?
Yeah, he's probably on my short list. Just because of his ties with Russ. Offense, defenses doesn't matter. I need a leader. You can put OC and QB coach that can handle Russ. You need a CEO that can run all sides of it.
Yeah. And I had to be in agreement. Dan Quinn is a name that, at least from that leadership standpoint, you got to feel pretty dang good about. Next name on the list, I'll go to Jody first on this one, is Jim Caldwell.
Yeah, because, that was a horrible, crappy Lions team that he took to the playoffs, and for whatever reason, he was fired after that. I have no idea, but, he had the Lions in the playoffs, so.
Albert, your thoughts on Jim Caldwell?
Yeah, I'm not so familiar with Jim Caldwell, but yeah, if he does if he did what Jody said, then yeah, why not? Give it a try.
But he had health issues when he was consulting in Miami, so
Didn't work.
Yeah, I don't know where he's at.
Where he ended up on that.
So, all right.
That's fair. That's fair. Albert, offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles, Shane Steichen. What are your thoughts on him?
And that is now intriguing. Not a suspect, but
oh no.
But yeah, subject. If he can do that with the Eagles, because the Eagles were crappy, and they're playing pretty decent, and I think accountability is what it all is about there, and I think that is what we need. Accountability.
I 100% agree with you, man. Accountability is something that I think that we got in our press conference today that was talked about quite a bit, as well as, I lost my train of thought, but I think that we could definitely get that as Shane Steichen. Your thoughts on Steichen, Jody?
I'm really a no on a first timer, other than. But one thing I will say on Steichen, they claim that is one of the most basic offenses to run, and Jalen Hurts runs it really well and puts up numbers. So maybe that's something Russ needs. But other than that caveat, I'm a no on a first-time head coach.
That's fair, man. First-time head coach. We've been kind of going back and forth. We're either first-time or tenured. If we follow that trend, we should not be getting a first-time head coach once again. A couple of people just chiming in. I don't know if this is because we have some Giants, some Eagles type of fans up in this area. I know that Kenny's a Giants fan. He's saying no on Dan Quinn. Sis is also a Giants fan. He's saying no on Dan Quinn. So I don't know if they're just not a lover of the Dallas Cowboys there, but that's their vote as far as that's concerned. Absolutely on Caldwell, says Sis, bringing him in. And Kenny saying my top first-year head coach, Steichen, is a yes. Just going down this list, we'll go through a few more real quick. DeMeco Ryans, defensive coordinator for the 49ers. Yes or no, Jody?
I'm a no. If you're going to go that route, you've got a guy right in-house that's a defensive coordinator, first-time guy, so no.
Okay. And Albert, DeMeco Ryans of the 49ers.
We might as well give it to Evero.
Okay, and we'll get to his name here shortly as we get through this short list. I don't know how quickly I'll get through this. Eric Bieniemy, Eric Bieniemy, offensive coordinator for the Chiefs.
I wish they would have done that last year, because he is a great offensive coach, and it is a system that what they're playing is probably will fit Russell Wilson really well. So they can have a really good mix-up with the two systems.
Jody, your thoughts on Eric Bieniemy?
I'm a no on Eric.
But you were out on first year.
I would love, I would love to know how much he calls plays to Andy Reid. I mean, I think that's more of an Andy Reid. He has an OC symbolic title. But I will give it that he's been there when Patrick Mahomes threw 50 touchdowns and admitted that he couldn't read a defense. So if you're saying Russ can't read a defense, why can't he make Russ throw 50 touchdowns not reading a defense?
All right. I'm going to throw this one back over to you. I think this is a name that you've actually brought up. Frank Reich. How are you feeling about Frank Reich on Jody?
Yeah, I'd be on board with that. I mean, he's taken a bunch of different quarterbacks in Indy, from from Luck his best year to Rivers to Carson Wentz last year, 25 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, to even Matt Ryan this year. He's worked with all different types, and really they kind of all produced. I mean, he had a wacky owner there in Indy that's so, I mean, but yeah, he has done it with all different types of quarterbacks. He might be the one to fix Russ, maybe as an OC or something.
All right. Albert, your thoughts?
I would hire him, like Jody says, as an OC, but not as head coach, because it is not just a quarterback that needs fixing. We need to have an entire offense that needs to be fixed and taken care of. And I don't think that Frank Reich can do that.
Fair enough. I'm going to go quick fire, just yes or no on like 4 names in a row, guys. We'll start off with Albert. Kellen Moore, yes or no? Offensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys?
Yine, in between.
In between. And how about Jody on Kellen Moore?
No, that's a definite no.
Okay. Jody, Ejiro Evero.
Yeah, he's probably my only, of all the first-year candidates, he's probably the only one I'm going to roll with.
Albert, how about Ejiro Evero?
Yeah, mixed. If you want to give him the opportunity, then yeah, go for it. But I rather see him develop a little bit more as a coach in general.
I'll just mark this. We already talked about Jim Harbaugh since we were talking about him so much already. That was the next guy on my list. I'll go 2 more. Albert, Byron Leftwich, offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
No.
Jody?
No.
And Jody, Leslie Frazier, defensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills. Yes or no?
He's really only the other one that's intriguing to me. I mean, what? Maybe, yeah. But you got to bring in the right OCs. It's all about what staff you put together.
Fair enough. How about you, Albert? Brian? I'm sorry.
Leslie Frazier.
Leslie Frazier. Sorry.
No, I would say no, because we already have a really great defensive coach in Evero. And what are you going to do with him?
Yeah, they might get some traction with another team. Turned down the opportunity to be interim head coach for the Denver Broncos. A lot of people said that was because maybe he didn't want 2 losses on his record as he goes out there and tries to get a job as a head coach. Certainly as an up-and-comer. Be interesting to see whether we are able to keep Ejiro Evero in-house.
I have a question with you naming what are head coach candidates.
Mm-hmm.
Had Hackett put a real coaching staff behind him, not all his friends and these first-timers, do you think this turns out different, where he had a legit OC and, not all these first-timers and who is someone on this staff that's experienced? Even Clint Kubiak's really not that experienced.
Jody, give me an offensive coordinator name, and I'll tell you if I would have had faith. Give me a name.
Brian Schottenheimer.
Okay. I think the biggest question is whether Nathaniel Hackett would defer to that offensive coordinator. Schottenheimer is a great name. I just don't know if he would have deferred to Schottenheimer and let him take the reins on that. Albert, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think, given a different coaching staff, that the outcome is different for Nathaniel Hackett in his 1 season here?
No.
No?
He has not even control over his the picks that he made. So, and then if somebody else comes in, no.
Jody, what are your thoughts, man?
I think things might have been a little different if he from day one didn't want to call plays and he, start delegating but a first time head coach and calling plays, it was just too much, I think. Just and he had nowhere to turn to. I mean, who was he going to lean on? He had one experienced guy in Don Capers who's 80 years old who hadn't been, in the game. It's evolved so much since he's really been a full-time coach that who did he have to lean on?
Yeah, 100% agree, man. It would have it would have been interesting, man, because this staff was not set up. I think I think Hackett came in with a plan in an offense that was completely suited for Aaron Rodgers. When that didn't work out, and we had Russell Wilson came in, he talked himself, he talked George Paton, he talked Russell Wilson into the fact that you can still run this offense, and I think he just completely backfailed. Now, if he had a strong OC that came in there and said, that's a bad idea, I've got a better plan, listen to me, this is what I'm coming up with, that's tough because Nathaniel Hackett was just an offensive coordinator. It would have had to been one heck of a strong personality, and that's why I wanted you to give me a name. I just don't know if Brian Schottenheimer would have been that person.
I don't think it was ever going to happen because
Yeah.
he was hired to call plays.
Yeah,
He was the offensive guy, so he
was
wasn't
the
going
guru.
to. He was going to call plays here, so he needed someone there to. Hey, this is what you do when this happens, and he a bunch of guys that were all guys that had never done it before. Clint Kubiak, really, that was it.
Learn on the job. There's a reason I went through this list, and the way I went through this list, gentlemen, these were the Las Vegas odds, and I don't have the odds actually off to the side. I wish I would have went through that step, I guess you could say. But ranking them first to worst as far as Las Vegas odds for the Denver Broncos to land as the next head coach was Sean Payton first, Dan Quinn second, Jim Caldwell third, Shane Steichen fourth, DeMarco Ryans, Eric Bieniemy, Frank Reich, Kellen Moore, Ejiro Evero, Jim Harbaugh, then Brian Leftwich, Leslie Frazier. That's where I left off. The next names were Brian Flores, Brian Schottenheimer, Darren Bevel, and then it got a little bit wacky. The next ones were Peyton Manning, Bill Cowher, Gary Kubiak, John Elway, Mike Shanahan, Shannon Sharp, and Pete Carroll rounded it out. So that's the reason I went through that list. We didn't get to the name that you mentioned, Brian Schottenheimer. Brian Flores, I thought was an interesting name, and Darren Bevel was the last real name I thought that had a shot before we went to Peyton Manning. Any other names that come to mind for you guys as well? I added in a few different names on our agenda that I just thought of, but any other names that you'd like to see? Jody, I'll go to you first if you like.
You named him. Kubiak I would like to see back here. I think that's a way long shot. Question for you guys, real quick.
I lost connection, I think, for a second.
Do you think that that the owners could, if they're really interested in a Peyton or Harbaugh and they get a no right away from those guys, that they could offer a John Gruden type 10-year, $100 million deal or something? They can write a blank check basically, and how are you going to turn down $100 million? I mean, you can say no, but when you add a couple more zeros to the back of that, it's
yeah.
Not to interrupt, I like Kenny's too. Bruce Arians is a wild card. His age is a little up there, but he was mentioned earlier in a little discussion I had, and I do like that.
Is he still under contract with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? I know that he took a front office job.
I'm not sure what his deal is, but I mean, he took a Kurt Warner that played really high and then played really bad like Wilson, and then brought him back to the Super Bowl. So
100% agree, buddy. I was always a Bruce Arians fan. Albert, I know that we were freezing up a little bit. Are you back with us? Are you feeling us? Oh, look. if nothing else, I don't know if we have a microphone on. That's the only downside.
Let's try that again.
All right, buddy. Back with us. We're back and live. All
Mm-hmm.
right, buddy. I appreciate it. A couple of names. One that I really like, I was surprised wasn't on this list at all as far as odds to be the next head coach, Brian Callahan, offensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals, a former Denver Bronco coach as well. Ben Johnson was another name that I saw floated out there. David Shaw, speaking about that connection at Stanford that Jody was mentioning earlier. Mike Kafka and Raheem Morris. Any of those names tickle you at all, Albert?
No, not really. I think either we have to go a really proven head coach, or if we want to, or we go something new. Because if we want to do something like the Pittsburgh Steelers, then we have to start fresh and start with someone that hasn't been a head coach, maybe couple years in the league. I don't know, like Sean McVay.
Yeah, just good Sean McVay. No worries. No, I'm just kidding. Jody, did any of those names tickle you at all?
No, not really. I think if I was going to guess, it's really down to three guys: Paton, Harbaugh, and Quinn.
Oh,
Quinn
wow.
probably a fallback guy, but I think they're going to open the checkbook up, and when Harbaugh and Paton aren't feeling it at first, I think a couple more zeros or another zero is going to. I mean, you can say it's not about money when you're talking $15 million to $20 million, but when you're talking $15 million to $80 million or something, I mean, that's so much money that how do you say no to that?
Yeah. I want to get your idea on Kenny's thoughts here. How
No.
about Chip Kelly? Hey, Chip Kelly may have been ahead of his time in Philly.
No.
Albert, are you in?
That's a train wreck.
Are you gonna maybe get on the Kenny train and maybe think about bringing Chip Kelly in for an interview, or you're on the Jody train and you slamming the door in his face?
I have another name for you, Josh McDaniels. If you want to go that list.
Well, I think he's kind of under contract right now. We'd have to sway him away from the Raiders, actually, believe it or not. So,
no.
Yeah, no. Honestly, as much as you laugh about Chip Kelly, maybe it's not the right situation for him to come to the Denver Broncos. But I do think that was a guy, as Kenny pointed out, that was ahead of his time. It didn't work out in Philadelphia. He never got another shot in the NFL. He's went back to UCLA, done decently with that program, especially the rebuilding that they need to do. I think it might be a guy that gets another shot, Kenny. I just don't know if it's going to be with the Denver Broncos. Gentlemen, we got a few things that we wanted to get through, and I don't know if we're going to get through it all, so we'll kind of brush through this as quickly as possible, I guess is the best way to put it. So both Penner and Paton talked about not just being about Hackett or Wilson, but also an organizational assessment and construction that needs to be happening. What changes beyond head coach are you wanting and or expecting, Albert?
The first and foremost, Landau and that medical team needs to be gone.
Thank you, Albert. Go ahead.
Because I've been saying this now for about 5-6 years. We have too many injuries, especially in the lower extremities. That is no longer a coincidence. It is. We can almost predict how many injuries we're going to have every year. We have now 21 people on IR, and at least 18 of them is lower body injuries.
Okay.
Because Ojimudi got let go, otherwise we would have 21.
Yeah. Move with Michael Ojemudia again, the guy that we were expecting to be a big part of this defense. No longer needed. Good point in that as well. But injuries, obviously, Landau and his staff has been the bane of a lot of Denver Broncos' existence. Jody, any other changes that you need to see within this organization Obviously, we're looking at a new head coach. Brought up the training and conditioning from Albert. Any other thoughts?
No, I'll piggyback off of that because it was brought up in the press conference that they've talked with other doctors and they've done extensive looking at tapes and different things. So I don't, they know that it's a top priority. And I mean, if you're going to other doctors and you're already, looking at film and how you train and different things, I mean, it's a top thing for.
Yeah, came out in that press conference, said, we're not waiting. They went out and they've already contacted the NFL about 30 days ago and wanted them to take a look, and then went after some medical staff, some outside medical opinions to kind of get a look at how we're training and what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. So, yeah, big changes as far as that is concerned. For me, I'm not going to disagree. We absolutely need to take a look at our medical staff. But I think, as they said, we need to look at this from top to bottom. I think we need to look at, literally, as is even George Paton said, maybe we need to be more calloused. Maybe we need to look at how we do our training camps differently. There's just so many things that we need to look at and maybe be running just a little bit differently than we ever have in the past. It's a 7-year trend that needs to be completely turned around. So, unfortunately, it's like we lost Jody here for a second, Albert. So just me and you. This is the question that I had next. There was an uncomfortable hesitation when Paton and Penner were asked if Russell Wilson was fixable. Is there going to be attention to the quarterback position beyond Russ this offseason? And is Russ fixable? When I say is there going to be more attention, are we going to be looking at maybe a bigger name being brought in this offseason, Albert?
I don't think so. Maybe they will restructure Russ's contract, maybe, but I don't think we will have Russ for the next 3-4 years. Russ is fixable, and I don't think we have to fix Russ. We have to fix the system that he is playing in. And I think that's where the problem is. And like I said, he's still a top 15 quarterback if you play him in the right system. And the biggest thing that needs to be fixed is the O-line. Because no matter what quarterback you can have Aaron Rodgers, you can have Patrick Mahomes, but if he doesn't get protection, then even those quarterbacks cannot do anything.
Yeah, you're going to struggle. There's definitely some needs and some absolute needs and some restructuring that needs to be done with our offensive line. Kenny coming in saying what I think is the Broncos need to do a total makeover on their O-line through the draft and free agencies. There's a lot of talk in the Denver media right now, Albert, that maybe we do actually take a quarterback early. If a quarterback like in a Hooker out of Tennessee who had a little bit of an injury, got a little bit nicked up, not going to be able to play in his bowl games and complete a season, but had a phenomenal season. If he falls to the top of the second round where the Denver Broncos are sitting, do you end up taking maybe a top prospect as far as a quarterback is concerned and letting him sit behind Russ, especially if there's concern that maybe Russ doesn't make it out of the weeds, Russ doesn't get better, Russ continues to struggle or go down this path that we've maybe seen him go down the last couple of years. Is that something that you would consider there, buddy?
Yeah, we need to do something in that area because right now with the two backup quarterbacks, Rippon is not cutting it. He might be good for 1 or 2 games a year, and that's about it. And yes, we need to do something about a QB for the future. And indeed, it is a good working system because Aaron Rodgers has been sitting behind Favre for 4 years, and it worked really well.
Yeah, did work out pretty well. Jody, know that we're having some technical difficulties. I appreciate you jumping back in here. The question that we were at was, do the Broncos address the quarterback situation beyond Russell Wilson in this offseason? A little bit of, I guess you could say, media coverage coming around that maybe if Hooker out of Tennessee ends up slipping to the top of the first round, that's a possibility for the Denver Broncos, and that's kind of what we were just talking about. What are your thoughts on a solution like that? And would you spend our top pick on a backup quarterback?
Maybe not top pick, but I think like a hooker or somebody that with the ACL injury who I think might fall. I think you take a chance because I think what you're going to get from our Habara or a Paton is they're going to say if this doesn't work with Wilson after this year and we dump him, you're not dumping me with him because that I need another quarterback in here and I think there's going to be you're not dumping me if Wilson fails again like this, and we've admitted that he's really on the decline. And you've got to have another plan in place you got to have another quarterback in place. So I think that's why like a hooker or, somebody that like that you don't need to rush or anything because of the injury, who probably would have projected as a first-round pick before that.
Kenny's not really on board. He says, I don't think you should draft a QB. That's just going to take away from a valuable pick, which you don't have many this year. Thanks for rubbing it in, Kenny. I appreciate it. I think you need O-line, running back, and a backup quarter over a backup QB in the draft. I'm sure is what he's saying.
I agree with O-line. I think 3 starters for sure, and maybe 4 if they don't keep Bulls. I mean, Bulls' contract is underwater, and you can save $10 million. So
the only one, minors I would keep and restructure Bulls because he might not be the greatest left tackle, but he still is a decent left tackle. So
I don't think Bulls is going to have a choice. It's either restructure or we'll cut you and save $10 million.
Yeah,
he doesn't have really the control on this one.
And that is what injury put him in the bird seat. Go ahead, Albert.
And that is what they can do with Russell Wilson now too. They can restructure his contract as well because of the performance.
But
That's more of an ask with Wilson, though. That's more of a can you, will you? That where with like as you were talking about when it comes to Bulls.
But saying that though,
we can just cut you loose and be done with you. It's not that big of a deal.
I heard today though that's the way this contract's set up. That's not really restructure friendly. So I don't know that that's really going to be a huge that I don't think that's an option like Bulls where you can cut Bulls and say I'm either you restructure or I'll cut you and save $10 million.
Yeah.
What do you want to do? And then go try to get on somewhere.
I think the biggest thing, especially with Russell Wilson, is next year is not a big money year. These first 2 years were easy years for the Broncos. It's the years in the future that you're having to mortgage. So most of the time you're trying to restructure within that year, right? I'm trying to take that 2023 money and rearrange it so that I can sign more guys or get more guys. Well, he doesn't have a whole lot of 2023 money on his contract. Now 2024, 2025, 2026, though that's completely different. We're in a world of hurt there, but that'll be conversations down the road, I think, as we run into.
But this cutting him this year, that's just stupid talk to me. I mean, over half of your cap. I mean, they were saying you basically are going to pay the rest of your starters vet minimum to fill the team. That's not possible. You can't cut him. So whether you get another quarterback and he sits, cutting him that's not an option.
Yeah. We're stuck with Russell Wilson, and like I said, even when we signed him to this contract I think will look better over time as NFL monies change, and we're not looking at being a top 10 paid quarterback. We're probably looking more like top 15 paid quarterback when this is all said and done. So I think things will get better in that regard. But, is Russ fixable? It's going to be a big question this offseason, guys. Like I said, there was a lot of hesitation there whether Russ was fixable. It'll be interesting to see. It'll obviously take the right coaching, the right coordinator for that to actually happen. So
what I'd really like to know is really what kind of dysfunction was really I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
was in behind the scenes when you have players that like I don't know, take someone that's been in another system or another team
Hmm.
that went through certain things. Take a Latavius Murray who was down there with
Yep.
Sean Payton, and then all of a sudden he came to. I mean, he came mid-season, but came to this or somebody. We didn't train like this in OTAs. We didn't do this. So what are we doing? You know, right away they could just. I mean, was it doomed from the beginning
Yeah.
to know really? I mean, yes, Russ played bad, but I mean, was it just so bad behind the scenes that you're never gonna know? But
Yep.
I would just be love to be a fly on the wall.
You took it right out of my mouth. Fly on the wall, man, or like you said, to really get the down dirty on this from someone on the inside would be fantastic. Sis is jumping in. I think I'm going to mash up our agenda just a little bit because he says, any way you slice it, this won't be a 1-year fix. And Albert, I'm going to throw this over to you. I had this in our agenda a little bit later, but I said the Broncos season will be ending soon, and there will be big changes. Obviously, we've been talking about there will be people that will be leaving. There will be new faces coming in, and this is my question: do the Broncos have the ability to quote unquote turn it around next season? And at least in your mind does success look like for this new ownership, coaches, players, and maybe even a new GM next year? What does success look like? Can they turn it around?
And what a success for me would would be as a winning season. If we have 9-8, that would be for me already a success if they can do that in a year. And we have not had a winning season for the last 6 years, 7 years now, since 2015. And so that would be for me a success, a winning season.
Jody, throw it over to you, man. Can we turn it around, and what does success look like?
I think that has to be the goal to turn it around in one season because of Russ and what you're paying him. You can't, you're not paying him peanuts and letting him develop. So that's, I mean, I don't think the whole coaching staff has to be do whatever for Russ to make it work, but you've got to have someone in here that can do what's best for Russ. And that's whatever, I mean, if you got to spend a little more on the O line to protect him a little longer or something, so be it at this point. I mean, but yeah, I think you're not going to go pay Harbaugh or Payton huge money to say, hey, you're in a rebuild. With a quarterback, we're paying $250 million to.
You know, it's funny because you're almost making me sway my answer a little bit. When you started talking, Jody, my thought went back to the very beginning of the season, before anything even started, and everyone said the Broncos are just a quarterback away, and they can be Super Bowl contenders. And that was Russell Wilson. When we brought in Russell Wilson, we were supposed to be that immediate Super Bowl contender in the AFC West. Why shouldn't we be able to turn around in 1 year, figuring we have all those same parts and pieces in place that we had, except now we're going to have a coaching staff that maybe better assimilates to Russell Wilson and his game. That would be the thought, right? That's an interesting take. My thought what does, turning it around, or what does success look like? Turning it around I'd probably be in agreement with you, Albert. Turning it around, a 9-8 season would be a phenomenal finish for us, and as far as I'm concerned. What does success look like? For me, success looks like us having an identity, regardless of our win and loss record. I don't care if we go out there and it's like, right now, as everyone has pointed out, defense, we have an identity. Offense, I couldn't tell you one thing that we stuck to, played like, had, a philosophy, an idea that we went out with every single game and tried to commit to. There was nothing. Even in this game, we look at, after Latavius Murray goes off last week, he comes in, and what is his stats? He goes 8 for 34. 8 rushes for 34 yards. Why are we only giving Latavius Murray 8 rushes after he just went off for 130 yards the week before? It makes no sense. We need to have an identity, winning or losing. That's what I'd like to see. That's what success looks like for me. So
I have something. Dave says this is not about what's best for us. It's about what's best for this team. I agree, but they go hand in hand. To get what's best for this team, you've got to have Russ produce. So you can't say that what's best for this team is because we have 4 speedsters on this team to throw, or timing patterns. That's not what's going to help Russ. So it's got to be together, in my opinion. To get what's best for this team, you've got to get what's best or what works best for Russ.
Albert, your thoughts on Dave's comments there? It's not about what's best for us. It's best for the team.
So yeah, because Russ is the the coordinator in the field on the offensive side, and if you don't play to his strengths, then the team cannot perform well as well. So you have to make it work for Russell Wilson, and everything else will come along with it. If you don't play to a system, if let's see, Josh Rosen or another quarterback would have come into a system that doesn't work for them, even Mahomes, if they don't play to their strengths, they don't make it. You have to play to the team's strengths, and they have not done that the entire year.
One thing I would say, if I was going to kind of defend Dave's on this topic, and then we'll get moving on to the last question and get out of here, gentlemen. But as far as Dave is concerned, going back to my mindset that I would love to be the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Pittsburgh Steelers never hired a head coach to make sure that it fit their quarterback, or it fit their running back, or it fit their whatever have you. At some point, we do need to get to some level of stability where the players coming in and out don't matter. It's the core of the GM, of the head coach, of the ownership group that stay in place. And sometimes that means that maybe they need to be a little bit more adjustable, but at the same time, I understand kind of where Dave's coming from, that it just can't always just be about one person within the organization. It needs to be
I agree
about
with
the entire
Dave
organization.
when he says we can't hire a coach for Russ and not the whole entire team. I agree with that. What I'm saying is you've got to bring somebody in that's a leader, but is also like a Kubiak, that he doesn't run what Peyton Manning did and they compromised and ran pistol, or like a Harbaugh. He went from Alex Smith to Colin Kaepernick, 2 totally different types of quarterbacks, but he knew how to adjust and different things. He was still a leader, but you adjust to what works for your quarterback. Where Hackett was, we're going to run my system and some different things. Or even if it was Russ saying, I'm going to be Drew Brees. No, you're not. We just seen for 17 games that didn't work. You're going to run what worked for you.
Yeah.
And I disagree with David. Sorry, David. Here's the thing. You can hire an offensive coach that plays to Russ's strengths, and then you have a head coach that manages the team. It is possible to do that. And that is what I would like to see happening.
I agree with Dave. The head coach needs to, Russ, you're not having an office, Russ. No one else's kids and wife come to the facilities and walk in the building willy-nilly and this type of stuff. That's all going away. We know what made you successful. You need to run that. And we will do things that make you successful. But for you now, 10 years into your career, to try to be something different, you tried that for a whole year and it failed miserably. Yeah. So if you're going to run what's made you successful, so that's where I'm saying the coach has to adjust to what works for us, but not Russ wants all this stuff, the office. That's all got to go away.
Yeah. They talked about a little bit about how from the very get-go, Nathaniel Hackett was the friend to Russell Wilson, and once you go down that path, there's no turning back, and that played out in the way things looked for the entire season. Albert, go ahead.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Russell does not need to act like a diva, and you have to earn that right to be a diva, and he hasn't earned that yet.
And that's what I am saying. If whoever your coach is, if it fails with Russ next year and you implemented what worked for Russ in Seattle and it failed, then your coach can do a 90 or a 180 and go back to what always made him successful with another quarterback. And you can say it failed when Russ wanted to do it his way. It failed when we did what made Russ successful. Father Time is undefeated, except for with Tom Brady.
Well, that might be catching up as well. Anthony, Anthony Rivera is coming in. That's the question we've been debating, and we're just about ready to get off the show. We'll be debating this, I'm sure, for weeks to come as well, gentlemen. It'll be interesting to see all these different candidates start to get lined up, start to be brought in, see what Penner's thought process is. Heck, it'll even be interesting to see who gets interviewed first, who gets brought in first, all of that. So it's going to be interesting, if boy, I don't even know if I know who my number one pick would be right now. I don't even think I'm going to ask that, but we'll get to that. Last thing I wanted to just hit, gentlemen, we do have next week's game. I just wanted to get your thoughts. There's going to be a lot of guys that are going to be playing for contracts, either with the Broncos, maybe a contract for a different team next year. They're playing for pride, obviously, at this point. They're playing for Jerry Rosburg also at this point. What do we expect to see out of the Denver Broncos come Sunday when we play the Kansas City Chiefs? I'll give it to Jody first.
With all the turmoil this week, I'd like to see them come together and, if nothing else, in this 14-game losing streak to the Chiefs, and I'm sick of hearing about it. And if for no other reason, there is no tanking this year, so who will stay healthy and in this streak, because I am overhearing about it, and come together. And whether you think Russ is corny or not, he's your quarterback next year. So, everyone's got to have a serious come to Jesus moment and look themselves in the mirror and say, stuff's got to change.
Yeah, that's what you're wanting to see, buddy. I'm hoping they bring that to the field. Albert, what are your thoughts? What did the Broncos bring to the field as they only have 2 games remaining? They go into Kansas City, and like I said, a lot to play for a lot of different reasons. But what are your thoughts?
I really hope that the players are going to play for a contract and not fall over when the wind is blowing. I hope to see a good game. Is it going to be a win? No. But I sure hope that we will have a good game and that offense is doing something. Maybe something similar than 2 weeks ago. I hope to see that.
I'll add one thing real quick. If Russ goes out there and he turns the ball over quick, I would get him out quick before before that's ingrained in his mind and he gets gun shy. And you don't want, when whoever it was that was seeing ghosts a few years ago, I don't want that as a lasting image. So if you even see it starting to turn bad, just get him out. And just say, hey, next year, you don't want that's a whole off season to sit and stew over. That could really mess him up. So don't let him go out there and throw 3 picks and put it in that before it happens.
Wow. I just want to go out there and kind of like I was talking a little bit before, I think that we have the opportunity to just go out there and have an identity. Typically, when you get into a new head coach like this, you're really trying to get into simple situations. We need to control the clock as it is. We need to keep the ball out of Mahomes' hands. So I want to see a heavy dose of the run game. I want to see a lot of ball control. I want to see those screen passes, those short dump offs, those button hooks over the middle for 7 yards. I don't want to see anything big. I don't want to see anything flashy. I think we just need to be downhill and we need to be consistent. And if this team can put together a game where we can stay in it, maybe it could be a game that we can actually flip the script and win a game where we're staying in it.
Quick question. Who's doing the play calling? Keefe or the new interim? Clint or the new?
Kubiak, I would say.
Yeah, I think from what I've understood, at least, it sounds like Rosberg is just going to oversee and let coordinators be coordinators. Alton's going to be up in the box. Kubiak is going to be on the sideline, and that's at least my expectation. There's no reason for Rosberg, in my opinion, to get involved. I don't think he's a long-term solution. He's not even being listed as a potential candidate next, for a head coaching position, as far as that's concerned.
I will second what you said, Keith, though, on the run game. I would like to see Mack and Edmonds play to see if you have a in-house running back that can be serviceable until if or when Javonte Williams comes back healthy. Because he is not going to be healthy week 1, 100%.
Good point. And to that being said, I wasn't all that big on Chase Edmonds coming back, and then all of a sudden they jump up and they put him in the starting rotation, and he gets a few carries, and he actually didn't look too bad in this.
And he's under contract next year, so
yeah, under a contract that it's kind of like that.
I mean, you can get out of. I'm just we need to see, because Williams isn't going to be 100% week 1 next year.
Kenny's jumping in, and since this is also jumping in on this too, he said Rippon should be the QB to see if he could be a backup going forward. And Sis just saying, good point. Kenny, what are you guys' thoughts on Rip getting another couple of starts in here or some good playing time to see if he sticks around next year? Albert, your thoughts on Rip?
I think Rip is maybe a good coach for quarterbacks in the future, but I think we should start looking for a new QB.
New backup QB.
Yep.
Jody, your thoughts on that one real quick?
Yeah. I mean, I'm playing Russ, but if it starts to, turn bad, I don't let it turn horrible, and I get Rip in there. And if it goes that way like it did last game, I put a stop to it quick, and he probably starts the last week of the season.
Yeah. I don't know if, I don't feel really good about Brett Rippon as being my backup quarterback. I didn't feel that great before. I will say, in retrospect, now looking at those training camps, he did end up commanding the offense better in training camp versus Russell Wilson, and now that's starting to play out in the regular season as well. A little bit concerning. Last comment just coming in, and he's Kenny saying running back Broncos should go all in for free agent Tony Pollard. It's the perfect spot for him, in my opinion. Tony Pollard is a name
I would love that.
Wouldn't disagree with at all. I like the way you're thinking, Kenny. Gentlemen,
Dallas would be stupid to let him go and keep Zeke, though, age-wise and mileage.
I agree, man, but we're also talking Jerry Jones. Jody, I'll give you some final thoughts here, buddy. What do you got for us before we get off the air tonight? Anything for us?
I would like to end this streak, but more importantly, I would just like to, with all the turmoil this week, just come together as a team and just play for one another, and that's it. Hold everyone accountable and hold yourself accountable.
Albert, final thoughts for our show this evening?
Yeah, I hope they will get it all together and their emotions under control. I hope we will see a decent game to a good game, maybe a repeat of 2 weeks ago. That's what I really hope. Maybe even a win, because it is possible. And yeah, I think the Broncos will turn it around.
Yeah, we made the right steps today. You know, I was kind of joking a little bit earlier with my wife. I said, you know, what this kind of reminds me of, as far as Nathaniel Hackett and the firing, was kind of like, you know, and especially all the circumstances of why they maybe did it this week. I told her maybe it was more like, you know, Walmart put out a defective Christmas toy, you know, and then next thing you know, it's destroying all the rest of your toys underneath the tree, you know, and it's you know, it's punching other ones right in the mouth, you know what I mean? You know, hey, I was really happy to see the accountability that we saw from Penner, the actual accountability that was taken on by George Paton. And probably the biggest thing, guys, is I'm excited, a little bit excited, if you can be excited, for the future. I think we haven't had this style of leadership like we have in the Penner group, the Walton Penner group, for quite some time. We went through issues with the Elway and him leading the ship, and no real ownership as Pat Bolin kind of fell to the wayside, I guess you could say, as far as that is concerned. So my biggest thing is, Broncos country, let's get excited. Let's be excited. This is a change. It happens really starting this weekend, I guess, and we could see a different team on the field, a team playing for a different head coach, a team with some different philosophies, and certainly have them going forward. So I guess from all of us here at the Denver Bronco Roundup, get my face off the big screen, get everybody up here. Appreciate you guys very much. Hope you had a fantastic Christmas. And to everybody, since it'll be after New Year's, Happy New Year and Happy 2023. Good night, and thank you very much. Appreciate it. We're out of here.